So now we're going to try a pastel drawing. And so we have black paper. This is just regular construction paper. Really terrible stuff to do a pastel drawing on, but I'll show you how to do it because most schools can't afford high quality pastel paper. The problem here is we're only going to get a couple of layers of pastel. The more layers you have of pastel, the better the drawing's going to look. But we're going to be limited a little bit on the materials we had. I'm going to be using this soft pastel, adding a little bit of this Jackson paint pastel. This is really terrible pastels, but we can still use them to supplement our little bit better pastel. So what we're going to do is we're first going to draw out the shape of this apple. Let's see. And this, I'm going to have a, yeah, kind of like that, okay? So saucer, so we have the ellipse, we have a circle, and we have our apple. On our apple we have shadow shapes, and we can map these out. And so the two type of shapes you're going to be looking for is the local color, the highlight color, and the shadow shape. The local color is usually the mid-tone, okay? Mid-tone, highlight, shadow. Oops, I got pastel on my thing here. Mid-tone, highlight, shadow. So keep telling yourself you're only looking for 3 values. In charcoal drawings, we're looking for 10 values, okay? In painting and pastel painting, because that's what we're doing here, is a pastel painting, we're looking for 3 values essentially. And this will really help you. There's more values, yes, but we're looking for the mid-tone, which is the local color, the color you think of the apple as being. You have the highlight color, and you have the shadow color. So what I'll do is, well, let's see. I think I will put the local color in. Now, when we were doing working with our charcoal, we learned how to crosshatch. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. When we crosshatch, this is going to allow us to get more layers in. If I were to use the pastel on its side and rub, I'd probably only get 1.5 layers on because the pastel would fill up all the texture in the pores in the paper and not allow more pastel to adhere to the paper. So that's a problem, okay? But we can get past that problem by crosshatching. So you don't have to have really expensive paper starting out when you're first learning how to do pastel. Okay, I'm just crosshatching. So I have this mid-tone shape. Now how about for the highlight shape? Well, I'm going to add maybe, yeah, this orange. Now this orange is going to go underneath a red, okay? So this is just to be underneath. Let's see, this goes up here more, right? And I'm using cross-hatching. Then I'm going to take the red I had, oops, wrong red. So I'm going to take the red I had, and I'm going to go on top of this orange to modify it just a little bit, and see how it makes a kind of a red-orange color. But it's lighter in value, so I have my highlight, mid-tone, and then I'm going to work on the shadow. So what am I going to use for shadow? Generally, in a shadow, use the complement. So complement of red is kind of a greenish blue. I have a kind of a purple. I'm not sure what color this is. Let's try it. Sometimes you have to try it. Oh, it's a blue. Okay. Well, I can use a blue. That's pretty close. Now let's try a little bit of green. I'm going to throw a little bit of green in here. No. Ah, okay. Here's a dark green. What's that going to do? What that is going to cause the color to be less saturated, to be less chroma. Remember we talked about saturation and chroma? And so it's going to knock the value, and I'm going to add maybe a little bit of blue in here. Oh, here's a good green. That's a darker green. Okay, doesn't look like much yet, but now I'm going to add my red on top. And this is going to cause it to be darker in value. See how that works? Not real hard. Now, these edges of these shapes, I want to blend them together. Don't just have a hard edge there. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, you know. So try to give it a little more. Okay, I'm gonna go grab. So try to give it just a little more in the way of. Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. Well, okay, that's okay. Okay, so I'm adding some more green on top. Then I'm going to add some more red. Let's see if I can find a darker red. Nope, we don't have a darker red. That's the problem with cheaper pastels, is you don't have enough variety in color, and the colors that you do have don't generally work real well. So I'm blending these edges, blending the edges. And I'm going to add maybe a little bit of yellow in here, just to brighten that up a little more. I want this to be a little brighter in some areas. Okay. Now, notice I'm not worried a lot about color. I'm more concerned about value. So I'm concentrating on value. My shadows, midtone, highlights, value. So that's what you really need to be focused on, is shadows, midtone, highlight, and concentrate on value. Because value is, way more important than any of this other stuff. So I want good value. Now, generally, I would stay away from neutral colors. Neutral colors are brown, gray, white, black. But if you do use a neutral color, you should modify it with a primary or secondary color, which will make it more beautiful. If you just use the neutral colors, the drawing will tend to look flat. It won't look real interesting. Okay, so my plate has some highlight, right? Where? Now, we talked about simultaneous contrast, right? Simultaneous contrast is what? You remember? Ooh, that's not the color I wanted. Let's try this. Simultaneous contrast is when you put one color next to another and they affect how you see both colors. I'm going to do this very quickly. And you'll notice it's going to change totally how you see everything. Now, I just used one color and I used the pastel on its side. I'm just trying to make it go fast. If you really want to make it look beautiful, you do lots of cross hatching, but that would take time and the video would be a lot longer and you guys would probably have fallen asleep by then. So I have one color here. I want to modify it with something else. Let's try, this is a fun color. So maybe I'll modify it with this color. So I want a variety of colors in the background here. I don't want it, and I don't want to rub, because as soon as you rub, it tends to flatten the color, and it doesn't allow, the depth. cross-hatching will create depth. Rubbing will flatten a color, and there's certain times you want to rub when you're using pastel. When you're using this really terrible paper, you don't want to rub. Just don't do it. Just don't go there. Okay, let's do some more of these shapes. So I'm looking and I'm just doing shapes. Oops, did I get the right? Yeah, well, we'll fix it later. And I know there's a bit of a highlight here and a highlight here. And this artist has added a bluish green in there. Now, notice I'm not doing a lot. Now that's very, very blue. So now I'm going to modify it by adding a green. And so that gives me a different color, you know, than just this green by itself. It gives me a blue-green. So you can mix colors with pastels. You know, don't think you can't. Pastels can be mixed just like regular paint. It's all in how you do the layers. And as I look at this, I know this is going to be a little bit darker down here. So what am I going to do? Maybe I'll add a little bit of blue in here, because I'm getting blue reflected up off there. Maybe a little here. Now you notice I didn't make a hard outline going around my figure here. I don't want to do that. I want the color to create the contour lines. Okay, let's add a little yellow in here, because whenever you use pastels, one color by itself, excuse me, one color by itself is okay. Two colors are beautiful. Sometimes on this crappy paper, if you use three colors, it turns muddy. So you don't want to do that. So be aware of that. So I'm going to use a little bit of yellow in here, create a little more highlight. And it's just a matter now of building up some of these values. I know underneath here is darker blue. Now that's the chroma of that blue is too much. So I need to knock that down a little. How am I going to do that? Okay. How am I going to knock the chroma down? Well, I could add a neutral. You know, I could add like this army green. Sometimes would help to knock that chroma down. I could add the complementary color of the blue, which is orange, but orange would lighten it. So I'm always looking at these pastels as value. So I don't want to lighten it, but I could use something like a purple. Let's see. I'll pick out some of my really terrible pastels here. This pastel, give me a purple. Oh, that's not too bad. That with the green, yeah, that works. I kind of like that. That's and so a lot of this is just experimenting. Well, that's not going on. See how this pastel isn't sticking now? It's because I've got so many layers on this shadow that it's starting to not want to draw on the paper, which can be problematic. Okay, where is my tabletop? It's about halfway, right? Coming across, tabletop. Ooh, and there's a kind of a light green in there. I like that in that tabletop. So let's grab a lighter green. Trying to do some cross hatching. Let's change that green. works. That brighter value. Computer's getting in the way. So what do you think? Can you do this? It shouldn't be too hard. Most of you guys, I have no doubt, should be able to handle this. Just keep in mind to use pastel colors as value. Value is most important. The actual color is secondary. Apples are just not red. Okay, keep that in mind. They are many colors to make that apple. I'm going to make this slightly brighter up here. Change the shape of this a little bit. So now I'm going to go in and I'm just going to tweak it. You know, I know this is a little bit darker in here. So let's make it a little bit darker red. Mixed into that blue and purple. But it's not as dark as that. This should be your darkest right here. So keep this as your darkest. And where's the core shadow? Remember we talked about core shadows way back when we were doing charcoal. Okay, where is that? There we go. Not too bad. I am not finding a good dark green here, but that's okay. We'll get it as close as we can. And it doesn't want to stick, which is a problem. Okay, transition here, a little lighter. Okay, so we're trying, if this transition does have a hard edge on it, so you want to look at your highlights and shadows. Does it have a hard edge or does it have a soft edge? Really good artists are always looking for those hard edges and soft edges. Okay. And there we go. You know, I could spend probably another half hour tweaking this. Getting my values just where I want them. But essentially that's it.